Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalek, and this is a special live episode of Dispatches. After 2 days of Israeli terrorist attacks on Lebanon that injured thousands across the country and killed more than 2 dozen, including children, Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah gave an address that accused Israel of crossing all lines. And then today, Israel bombed Beirut, flattening an entire apartment building. As we approach a year of genocide on Gaza and ongoing escalations on several other fronts, many are wondering how much longer this can go on without exploding into a regional apocalypse. To discuss the latest developments, I'm joined by Lebanese journalist Ghadi Francis. Ghadi, welcome back to the show.
Hello, Rania. We miss you in Lebanon, and thank you for acing the pronunciation in Arabic this time.
Well, I miss you too. I miss Lebanon, and it pains me to not be there right now as the situation is just horrific. Israel continues to escalate. So I guess a good place to start would be, can you talk about what just happened today? Um, where it looks like Israel bombed an apartment building in the southern suburb of Beirut, and there seemed to be many casualties. So, what were they doing? Why did they do this? And what's the outcome?
Well, the reports are still coming out, so not everything is now definite, and we still didn't see the official statement by Hezbollah. So usually the affirmed information comes from Hezbollah itself, not from the Israelis. But as per the Israelis, it was targeting a top commander and a top leader. But it was in a bustling street in the heart of Beirut, in the time when people are coming back from schools and families are coming back to their homes. So the casualties are naturally uh, many. But regardless of that, Rania, I want to tell you something, and I know that you know that it is really how I live and how I feel, and it reflects the Lebanese spirit in general. You know that I'm not bluffing. We are very much subtle and contained in such situations. It comes to us naturally because this is not new to us. This war is not new to us. Our people are not new to us. It's just like you are living an experience as a person. It's a personal experience, and there are seasons.
Mm.
Now, as Lebanese people, this Dahi, this southern suburb of Beirut, and this organization, and this community, and this country has seen that firsthand, year in, year out, season in, season out, massacre in, massacre out, since 1948. So, when you tell a Lebanese journalist that yes, they bombed Beirut today and they killed a top leader in Hezbollah, I say, how would a top leader in Hezbollah prefer to die? We're talking about someone who's obviously, as per the information, Ibrahim Aqil is one of the wanted lists because he was in the actual actual operation and against the Marines in the 83. So he's on the same list, on the same album or list of the top wanted military and security leaders in Hezbollah. But I was just thinking to myself, if this man was one of the fighters or the leaders in 1983, which is like 40 years ago, we're talking about a 60-year-old leader. I want to tell you, Rania, and to tell everyone that would listen to us, those who really like Lebanon and love Lebanon, and those who are pro-Palestine and pro-life and anti-war crimes and anti-civilian uh, technology becoming war bombs inside our homes and next to our children's beds. People who are pro-life like us, I want you to rest assured that the resistance that is actually carrying the fight, deterring the Israelis, hurting the baby killers, is not the 60-year-old leadership.
Mm.
Rest assured, the ones that are firing the missiles, activating the drones, getting the footage back intact to the headquarters, sending them to press, sending the hacked messages to every Israeli yesterday, the ones who are actually carrying on the technological warfare that was able to defeat your billion-dollar Iron Dome.
Mm.
These are not the 60 something year olds. I'm not saying that the 60-something-year-old leadership is not of essential wisdom and presence in such organizations. But I'm saying, I said that when Fuad Shukr was assassinated. I don't think the people who are actually in that meeting, if they are one or three Radwan leaders, are the only leaders in Hezbollah. And I don't think they would prefer any other way to be martyred. These are people whose ideology is way too deep, and they are numerous. I think if Netanyahu wants to eradicate Hamas, and it took him 1 year, and the list came out yesterday, he killed babies, elderly, women. Most of the deaths were not actual fighters, okay? So do you think that how much time would it take Netanyahu to defeat Hezbollah, who's recorded and reported to be around 100,000 fighters?
I mean, those are all very, very important points. It does seem as though the Israelis are really testing Hezbollah this week. I want to ask you about the horrific terrorist attacks that took place in the days prior to this recent bombing. Because that was quite unprecedented. And I'm sure you saw the Western media coverage of that was to frame the booby trapped, exploding pagers and then walkie talkies the following day as some sort of ingenuity of the Israelis. They're so smart. They're like James Bond. Look what they did. It's so precise. It's so strategic. It's so creative. Um, and you're obviously in Lebanon. And we all know people who were
I had
impacted
to
by
come
this.
on a
Go ahead.
panel. Yesterday, I had to come on a panel with a creature that said these while I was
Oh,
listening. Imagine.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
And he
that's very triggering.
actually unapologetically used the term, it so much looks like white colonizers blanket bombing something. He said something like that, and I lost it. My heart was racing. They are brutal enough, unapologetic enough, racist enough, crazy enough, terrorist enough to enjoy saying it. What are you talking about? Your kids have pagers and phones. What are you talking about? Are you really enjoying and celebrating turning every electronic device into a timed bomb in the hands of an apartheid regime? If they are not saying no to a creature like Netanyahu, will they say no to your government when they use that to kill you? Israel is a seller of crime. They are setting presets. What they are doing is not about Lebanon. It's not about Hezbollah. It's not about Palestine. It is about humanity, technology, utilizing technology in uh, terror attacks. And if they do it and the world says that's great, is the world saying that if something like Al Qaeda uses that tomorrow, that would be superiority as well? What are you giving? Who are you giving ideas to? This world is open. This technology is open. The Israelis obviously are not the smartest people in the world. They're actually the idiotic people in the world because they're carrying on their own self-sabotage for the last year. They turned every human into their enemy by using that. This is not being smart. This is being dirty enough. It is not being some things only the dirty people do in life. It's not being smart if you make $1 million being in prostitution. This is not smartness. This is just simple choices in life. They choose to be war criminals and kill people using pagers simultaneously in the middle of the day with bystanders, civilians all across the streets. You can see that children died, and you said countless people. These people who lost their eyes or their hands, they are not combatants for Hezbollah. I kid you not, they are not. They are just people who use that technology. The actual combatants are not there in the middle of the day carrying their beepers.
No, it's completely ridiculous. It was terrorism in the most obvious way, and it was very like ISIS style, Al Qaeda style, uh, sort of attack. It was so dirty, and that's what the Israelis do. They play dirty. But Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech yesterday. And in it, he said that this did not destroy their communications network. This did not destroy their command and control network. And he noted that this was an attempt to get Hezbollah to decouple its fight with Israel from the genocide in Gaza. And he reiterated, which he's been saying since October of last year, when this started, that the only way Hezbollah will stop firing at Israel is if the genocide in Gaza ends. And that remains the same. So I'm curious what your thoughts are after that speech yesterday.
Well, the speech really, it is typically what I thought it would be. Calm, contained, realistic, self-critical in some sense, but really very confident.
Mm.
They know their fight. They know their fight. It is very important to understand that this is a war where our people, the Lebanese people, we have seen this amount of death in the history of our war. The technological superiority of Israel does not come from their special brains. It comes from the billions of dollars. It comes from the American impunity. It comes from the backing. It comes from the state of what they are and how they came from all around the world and took our land. By that, using that, they always used their technological warfare. They used planes when we had our homes in the beginning, and they always bombed tents with their planes. So using technology on indigenous people is not superiority; it's just colonizing. So I think the speech, Said Nasrallah's speech yesterday, promised us the retaliation and also promised us something more important, that the actual warfare that is on the ground. He reminded us that what Netanyahu is trying to do is to get his settlers and his colonizers back to northern occupied Palestine, and this he will not do. And I take his promises very seriously, because the last time he promised that people will get out of the Israeli prisons, we saw them freed after the 2006 war round. Lebanon's Hezbollah, when they say Hezbollah's stronghold, Lebanon is a country, it is all a stronghold of Hezbollah. Babies, elderly, every civilian is a stronghold of Hezbollah. Because the more you kill, the more people will be pro Hezbollah, because they are their protectors. When you tell them that you kill them in their sleep, in their homes, in their schools, everybody is going to stand behind the rockets that deter you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I always do say that the only thing standing in the way of Israeli rape dungeons across Lebanon, as they've created in Palestine, and just mass slaughter, is Hezbollah. And I want to ask you on that note, we heard, again, like you said, you had to hear somebody say it yesterday, Israel's ingenuity, Israel's creativity. I mean, this is a country that gets billions of dollars of handouts from the West. Of course, they're going to have good, superior technology. What I find ingenious in many ways and creative is the kind of technology we see on the side that's being sanctioned and bombed all the time. And here I want to ask you about Hezbollah specifically, because we've seen some really interesting unveilings from Hezbollah. More recently, we saw Hezbollah's created tunnels inside of mountains. Which, I mean, you got to say, in a country like Lebanon that's constantly being spied on and watched, the ability to create to build tunnels in mountains, I mean, that is quite ingenious. That is quite innovative. All the words they used to describe Israel's handouts, people are creating under sanctions. So can you talk a bit about that aspect of Lebanon's resistance, and the fact that they've been able to domestically create their own weapons, own equipment, own tunnels, in really innovative ways?
Well, the thing is, they are very old in this fight. And this is their land. They know it. They understand it. They love it. It loves them. It protects them. The trees, the rocks. These are tunnels. I suppose I could see the fingerprints of Imad Mughni all over them. And Mustafa Badruddin and Hassan La'is and also Fuad Shukr and probably Aqil. And I want to tell you, this is why I want to go to this the first point where we spoke about the generation. You are
Mhm.
speaking to an ideological Iran backed. They say Iran backed. It's Iran armed, and the
Mm.
Iranian weaponry is being sold to Russia right now. Russia, which knows what it's buying. You know, like as if you're asking um Rania about gym clothes. You know, like she's the expert.
This is true.
So, so when the Russians are buying weaponry from Iran, I mean, that's a statement of the brand, right? So you're talking about an ideological group that today I visited a mother, her son was martyred in that attack. He's not a combatant. He's an active, his father is an MP, you know? So I was paying condolences, and it really is. I went heartbroken. I left her house extremely inspired and strengthened and empowered because she said, you know, maybe some people were. This is I quote her here, the mother of the martyr, حجي زوجة يعني she's the wife of MP Ali Ammar.
Mm.
What a woman! You know what she said to me? She said, you know, with a smiling, grateful face and blue eyes. I just want to reiterate, like, because maybe if we're not brown, you take us as humans.
Right.
So, so she has blue eyes, and she was really smiling and telling me, you know, this land was a little bit tired, and the people might have been a little bit tired after like coming down from the south and the change. And people are really in pain in Lebanon because southern Lebanon is like the heart of Lebanon. So the ongoing war and attacks on people and villages and destruction of homes and buildings and also like the migration, the local migration, the internal migration that has happened. So she said maybe people were tired and that land requested blood and we gave
Mm.
it. And this is a woman whose son, whose very special son, because obviously he was friends with all of the media people that I know. I didn't know him personally, but he's
Mm.
friends with all our friends, Mahdi. So I was like, this woman is feeling like that. This is just, I'm telling you this story because this is one example of this ideology. So you have this ideology, the Iranian globally acclaimed weapons, and it is your land, and your leaders who are now like old, but they passed on to generations and generations, and they multiplied and they strategized, are the peoples who deterred the United States Marines in year 1983. You're coming 40 years later to this brand of people. So I suppose, so I suppose what we saw in the tunnels in Imad 4, every time they show us something, everything my mind can think about is like, if this is what they are ready to expose, what are they hiding?
Right. But I'm at four. That suggests there's three of them and then maybe a few after, right? In terms of those tunnels. And they've obviously built.
Maybe it's four per village.
Right, right. Exactly. Four
Our
per village.
land,
Could you imagine?
our land is really mountainous. How many
Right.
mountains do you have in your small town? I really want to ask. You have the smallest town maybe in Shuf area, Majd
Yeah.
al-Balad.
Ale, ale.
Okay, okay, and Ali, how many mountains your little town has?
A lot. A few. Yeah. So do you, each of those mountains maybe has a tunnel. Who knows? Maybe four. Um, I
I don't think so. No, what
real
I'm
quick.
trying to say is that our land is really mountainous.
Yes.
And the south is really strong. And
Yeah.
also, we know it just like the palms of our hands as Lebanese people. You know, so I don't think anybody is willing to face Hezbollah directly. The thing is, Netanyahu knows that we will not go into a full-blown war because we care about human life, because we are humans, decent human beings. Just so all he's trying to do is to keep on attacking us, keep on hurting us, trying to take us into war because he cannot return his settlers back, because he cannot eradicate Hamas, because he cannot eradicate any kind of resistance, because he has a problem. If he stops killing people, the Israelis will overthrow him. He's gonna keep on doing that until a new American administration is in place, and maybe he gets a new way out of his existential crisis.
Mm.
I really think it's a matter of time, and he might be the last person to rule this entity, because if we could do 300,000 per year, how many millions are there?
You mean Israelis leaving?
Yes. I
I
mean,
I want
colonizers
to.
going back to their land because they
I
have the
wonder
dual passports.
where they're actually from. Before I move on to the next topic here, and I actually want to go back to some of what you mentioned. I want to remind people who are watching to make sure that you smash that like button, you guys. It helps boost us in the algorithm.
So now we're
Uh,
live, really? Yeah, while
we are
we're here,
live. Yeah,
people
we're
are
live.
talking. Okay,
We
I
are
just
live
opened the
right now.
comment section. Sorry.
Oh gosh, now she's watching the comments. Um, so Ghadi, I want to ask you, I know we talk about this every time I have you on, but I think it's important to reiterate because we have mostly an American audience and they are inundated with propaganda about Lebanon, about the region. And as far as, CNN covers it and New York Times covers it and whatever the State Department says about Hezbollah is that they are a terrorist organization. They're using all of Lebanese as human shields, and that Israel is right to attack Hezbollah because Hezbollah is just always hurting Israel. So I want you to just very simply explain to our audience, who is Hezbollah? What is this group? Because yes, they have a military wing. They also have a political wing that, are elected to parliament. So what is Hezbollah in the Lebanese context?
It's a political party. It's a political party. It is present in the Lebanese parliament. It has the majority of the Lebanese votes, so it has the biggest blocs and alliances in the Lebanese parliament. It is decisive. Now, the politics in Lebanon was not built on preferences or left, right, and center. It was built on people since the beginning of Lebanon, people who want sovereignty and people who prefer to have alliances with the West and people who
Mhm.
like to have alliances with the East. And there were like deals between these entities in Lebanon. In the Lebanese civil war, Hezbollah was not present. Sorry, I lost my electricity here for a second. I
Lebanon.
have a I have a lithium battery in my office, and next
Mm.
time the Israelis choose to have a terror attack, I might die just with a bomb placed in my land. And I'm
Sounds
talking to you, and I'm really as calm as can be. This is because I am a Lebanese person. If I was an Israeli settler coming from America, taking a Palestinian people, families home, I would be under the table now because it wouldn't be my ancestors' land, and I wouldn't want to defend it. Now, this is the
Mhm.
difference, you
Yeah.
know? Going back to what Hezbollah is, it's a political party. It gained the hearts and the support of the people because it chose to fight the Israelis and not vice versa. People in Lebanon were occupied by Israelis. The Israelis used to occupy our land. They used to kill our children. They used to imprison our people. They used to confiscate our riches. They want to take our waters, our rivers. They used to rape. They used to slaughter. They used to place and arm groups and militias so that there would be civil unrest and assassinations. This is what they used to do in Lebanon. And the Lebanese people chose to fight them, and they won. And the political parties like Hezbollah, before Hezbollah, there were other political parties that gained the solidarity and the support of the Lebanese majority. So this tells you that whoever chooses to fight Israel will take the majority of the Lebanese people's votes. So this is what Hezbollah is. This is why you have MPs, members of the parliament, of the Lebanese parliament, which is in the United Nations, and they are Hezbollah. Now it has been listed as a terror organization by the administration that killed million Iraqis, by
Mm.
the administration that aided the Saudis to impose the biggest humanitarian crisis of the century in Yemen. This is from the administration that actually gives weapons and aids Netanyahu in the most televised genocide in human history. So the definition of terrorism does not come from the United States,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know? And on the contrary, if the American administration likes you, I have a problem with you. You must be
Uh,
doing something wrong.
right. That's completely accurate. I want to play devil's advocate here, because Hezbollah's criticized in two ways. I want to ask you the first way first. Hezbollah is, and you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but I want you to elaborate. Hezbollah is portrayed as, and by some Lebanese, the kinds that align themselves with the West, as well as people in the West will say Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran that's holding Lebanon hostage. It's dragging Lebanon into a war with Israel. They're the ones who struck Israel first on October 8th. Why are they still doing this? If they just stop, Lebanon would be fine. If Hezbollah would just stop and give up their weapons, Lebanon would be fine. It would be like Dubai. Or, whatever, name your country, Singapore. I don't know. What's your response to that criticism?
We like being Lebanon. First of all, we don't want to be anyone else. We are very happy in being who we are. We are very patriotic in that sense, all of us, with our different views. Yes, there are some people who don't like Hezbollah. There are some people who have a problem with the religion being the ideology. I am one of these people. I'm a secular people. Yeah, I'm a secular person, sorry. So there are people who'd actually prefer to be pro-Israel. But the problem is that they are so, allow me to say, dumb, because because they might die in an Israeli strike as we speak now while they're passing by in their city. So whatever the propaganda is telling them is not true, but you cannot blame them. They are under a lot of propaganda, and the war is a war of information and of designation today. It is a war like that. Had anyone spoke about what happened to 3,700 Lebanese 2 days ago in any manner as equal humans to what happened to the settlers on October 7, although the Israelis killed their own, and I will never say any sentence otherwise, they killed their own in Nova Festival. The Palestinians wanted live hostages. The people who are killing the hostages are the Israelis. They killed them before and they killed them during, and they're still killing them also as we speak. Um, so all this is, I can understand that people under the propaganda have a problem with the Hezbollah, and I can understand that people do not like what Hezbollah stands for. They don't like Hezbollah's alliance with Iran. I
Mm,
understand them. But to say that they came in a parachute from outside Lebanon and they chose this war, it's unlikely. The only reason why Iran was able to spread its influence in the Middle East, into Syria, and into Lebanon in particular, and into Palestine, is because it aided the indigenous people in their fights. When Iran was with the Shah, when Iran was with the United States, it had zero influence in Lebanon. It had
mm,
zero influence in Palestine. It had zero influence in Syria. It had zero influence in Yemen. So Yemen's retaliation today, Iraq's retaliation today, Syria's retaliation, or even like remaining alive, survival today, or Lebanon or Palestine, all this was aided by the Iranians. So you cannot really find it unlikely that these peoples or these groups see that the Iranian solidarity helped them. Had
yeah.
the Emirates, because you spoke about the Emirates, has the Emirates or Singapore or Russia or China or Portugal or Spain or anybody aided that cause, they would have the same influence.
That's
It's
true.
not the, it's, regardless of your prejudice and your feelings today, um, even if you want to fight a group, you must understand what they stand for. I find it really, because when you tell me, you or any colleague or any friend, like, what do you think about people saying this, that, and that? Some people in Lebanon say this, that, and that. I mean, at that point, 1 year into genocide, Rania, I do not want to even validate their presence with a reply. if you chose to be that ignorant, that racist, that apologetic for human eradication in that sense, and for dehumanizing of your own people, because of your lack of self-confidence, you always think the white person is right, the white colonialist is right. So yes, let me stand with the powerful. I cannot even talk to you at that point. For me, you are just the typical person who chose to die hanging on to the bottom of the helicopter, the American helicopter in
Oh,
Kabul airport.
yeah.
You are that person to me. I don't want to speak to you.
Wow. That's very powerful. Before I ask you this next question, I want to remind people to make sure you hit the like button. It helps boost us in the algorithm. There's almost 1,500 people watching and only 640 likes. So half of you have not smashed that like button, and half of you can't possibly be watching out of hate. So like the show, guys. It's the least you can do. Okay, so Ghadi, the
You know,
other
in the reference to
criticism.
the Kabul airport, I just want to explain
Yeah.
why. Because some people came, when the Americans came to Afghanistan, they thought, I'll be with the Americans, they're going to win. 20 years into that, millions of people, destruction. Who did they give it to when they were leaving? To Taliban. And where did the people who stand with the Americans stay? At the airport, waiting for a chance to be lifted outside of the country. These are the people who stand with the American administration today as we are in this war. If you stand with the Americans and you're Lebanese, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's very true. That's absolutely true. I want to ask you from the other end. Another criticism that I'll hear or see mostly online sometimes is Hezbollah's not doing enough. Um it's actually funny. Sometimes that comes from the same people, but then sometimes I think it comes from people who want them to do more. Like, why aren't you hitting Tel Aviv? Why aren't you, bombing or assassinating Israeli military officials? Why aren't you retaliating more harshly when they commit terrorist attacks against Lebanon? So I'm curious what your response is to that criticism.
My response is, if it's the loving criticism, some
Mm,
people really like, why aren't we using all our power? I would say I wouldn't know to call the shots. They have been succeeding in retaliations, and I think if Nasrallah said yesterday, if Netanyahu put his aim, the settlers coming back to the north, and we were able to not allow him take his target, we're still winning that battle. I mean, today I used this metaphor, or this like comparison. I don't know if it works. If we're playing a football game, they did not really score. They did not score anti-Hezbollah. They did not score in What they did is that they killed one of the players, which is like anti the rules. So it's not
mm.
superiority. I think Hezbollah knows how to fight the Israelis very well on their own terms. They know what they have, they know their time, they know their weight. And I think one of the main purposes and targets they have set for themselves is to protect Lebanon. Let me think and entertain that idea. If Hezbollah strikes, and they can, they can. If Hezbollah strikes today any big target in Tel Aviv, like a mall or something, what happens the next day?
Yeah, that's a good question. The next day, all out war, probably.
And then Hezbollah's people will be in their very well built tunnels. They are 100,000 fighters. They are prepared financially, logistically, ideologically for that fight. Who will pay the price?
Lebanese civilians. Yeah.
Me personally, I will not be able to sit in my office. You will not be able to go back to your home. Our friends, our communities. They are calling the shots because they know the Israelis very well. And they know that this war has a part that is the diplomacy of the war, that is the time. Netanyahu is trying to salvage his own political career by doing anything, by doing anything. And I said, I'm going to take you back to the north and I'm hurting Hezbollah. But he has no muscles, no superiority, no strength. He's not hurting Hezbollah. He's not scoring. He's not returning his hostages against Hamas in Gaza. Just as equally, he's not even being able to bring the people back to their so-called homes, which are settlements. So in the end, this is land that Hezbollah single-handedly liberated. Colonizers out. This equals liberation. So who's still winning on the ground? Inside Al-Mutalli occupied Al-Mutalli inside northern occupied Palestine. Who's there? No one.
No one.
Hezbollah's Katyusha. Okay.
No, I think that speaks to a really important point, because I think that um, the way it looks from the outside, all we see, uh, especially in the West, is our phone screens showing one massacre after another in Gaza. It's just endless starvation, rape, torture, just murder left and right. And then you see Lebanon. In Lebanon, there's terrorist attacks. They're hitting Beirut. It looks so hopeless, and just like it looks like Israel's succeeding, even though, like you mentioned, they haven't actually achieved any of their military goals. So what's this? I mean, I mentioned a lot of this is psychological warfare. I imagine a lot of Lebanese are walking around feeling very uncomfortable after what happened this week, and quite frightened because the violence was so random. So I guess I'm just curious, what's the sentiment on the ground? And is Israel's psychological war, even if they're not gaining anything militarily, is it working by terrorizing civilians this way?
I think it is really working for the good of Hezbollah.
Hmm. Interesting.
If yeah, if we want to be factual, what happened on the ground, and Lebanese politics. Rania,
Hmm.
there are Lebanese forces, people who went and gave blood to Hezbollah non-combatants. Do you know how big
Interesting.
that is? There are people who work all day and night anti-Hezbollah in politics who couldn't, and I'm speaking to you and I have who couldn't see their brother Lebanese like that, who couldn't see their brother humans. There are humans in Lebanon who step over every difference they have, and they are doctors and they are nurses and they are blood donors, and there are countless people who said, I will give an eye, let me share my eyes, I'll give one eye to one of these guys who's gonna go and fight on my behalf in southern Lebanon, let me give a kidney, let me give a liver. People were like that. These were requests coming to Lebanese hospitals. So exactly what Mahdi Ammar's mother said, what Hezbollah MP's wife, and she's also an activist, a political activist, because do you think that Hezbollah doesn't have powerful women activists? Where are their women? How do they raise these communities? So uh, I take you back to what she said. Exactly that happened. This blood, this blood was a big sacrifice. This gave every single person in Hezbollah the feeling of, no, these people are around us, our community is around us, our hospitals are around us. And also, it reminded the Lebanese who Israel is and what Israel is willing to do, what kind of criminality they are. So, in the psychological warfare, it would work if we were cowards coming from Europe or Northern America or wherever and taking other people's lands. Yes, it would have worked. Our text messages from cyber attacks on the Israeli settlers, and they are under the tables. While today, I saw this, like I heard the strike yesterday with the Nasrallah speech. There were like two planes here, above us, and I'm like listening to the speech. I didn't really move. You see, so psychological warfare, and I'm not only speaking about me. Our neighbors. My community. I'm surrounded with a Christian community, and we're all like, yeah, okay, what's gonna happen? This is how the Lebanese are dealing with everything, because we are children of war and a lot of vengeance. So when we are giving these sacrifices, we are not like, please, I want this to stop. No, it's like, please, I want justice because I've paid a lot. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
sacrificed a lot. I'm not gonna go back now. I'm not gonna step back now.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank you for the super chats. I see a bunch of people put stuff in the super chat. Here's one of them. Um, Thank you so much, Zohra. She says, I'm so sorry for what you all have endured this week. I have no doubt that Israel will suffer greatly for these atrocities. What the hell? I'm an American with Afghan parents, and that helicopter comment. Oh, sorry. I guess she didn't like the helicopter comment. gross and
No,
insensitive.
this is why, yeah, I'm sorry, Zara. This is why I took an extra 20 seconds to describe what I was trying
No, I get
to
what you were trying
compare.
to say. I get what you were trying to say, but sorry, you thought that was insensitive. But also appreciate the super chat. Weird. Okay. Bit of a contradiction there.
What
But
is what? No, no, she wanted to make a point, but what is the super chat feature? I don't know.
oh, on YouTube, people can do a super chat. They can like donate money. And then if they do, I'll read their comment. So I guess she really wanted me to read her comment. But I
Yeah,
appreciate
but
your
it's very, no,
condolences.
I really respect people really putting themselves out there to defend their ideas. And it's especially for that, Zohra, why I interrupted my dear professional friend Rania, and I just like I stuck 20 more seconds to describe that because I thought it was harsh too to someone who's not an Arabic speaker like me, because I most of the time think in Arabic, speak in English. It's not my mother tongue. I'm only illiterate like that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I know, no, I totally got what you're saying. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah, I
regardless,
know. But you
I
know, because the actual, because it's actually, it was humanitarian, like it was painful to see someone die like that, you know.
yes, it was. But I want to ask you about because since we're talking, we'll segue from the helicopter because it was an American helicopter. I want to talk about the American responsibility here. I'm sure you've seen over the last few days, every time Israel's done carried out these horrific crimes, the Americans will say, "We didn't know about it. We didn't know about it," but then they'll go on and justify it. But their hands aren't on anything, and I think it's really important because in the U.S. we're often especially even in some left media, we're told, oh, it's, the Israelis controlling American policy, as if the Americans are just like these children or something who don't really know what they're doing. And the Israelis are just able to squeeze out of them whatever they want. And I'm just curious how you see, I don't see it that way. I see the Americans as being responsible, but I'm curious how you see it. As a Lebanese person who's been a war correspondent all across the region.
Well, you know, I don't try to say that I'm an expert on American politics. We see what the Americans send to us. But in following this war, I'm learning a lot about the American community, about the American youth, about you as an American. I'm learning about the good Americans, the humans, the politicians that are good, not bad. And I'm also learning that maybe America is hijacked by Israelis. I'm starting to feel for you guys. I mean, are you free as a journalist in the United States to speak about Zionism like I am here? Do you have equal freedom? I don't think so. I don't think so. You're not even free as a college student, as someone who's supposed to be thinking on behalf of the future of a country. They're trying to even silence these. So I ache for what I think or thought the American educational social dream would be, because I went to an American school in Lebanon, and I had an idea like, okay, this is where you can like articulate, and if you do your work, and there's like the meritocracy in things, and there's the justice and whatever, and the human rights. So I think many of the American people do stand for that, and their voices are being hijacked by uh, Zionist funded politicians and media and businessmen like Elon Musk and so on. And everybody who chooses to stand outside that, they're either killed or cancelled. So I feel so sorry for that in America. So going back to what the Americans can do, well, like there's a poll today that someone posted on your Twitter announcement of this live stream that said that 69% of Americans are anti funding Israel, according
That's
to some poll.
huge. That's huge. And that's a new development.
Yeah, so I don't want to blame the Americans for what their governments are doing, and I don't think there is an actual governance in America. So in general, being in this part of the world, I want to say that the American foreign policy has never been just to us. It's never been humanitarian to us.
Mm.
They've always had a hegemony approach to our people. They've never been good to us in any sense. They've never been good to Iraqis. Okay, they removed Saddam Hussein for freedom or for removal of chemical weapons, and then who did they put and what did they do? And what did they take from Iraq and how did they leave Iraq? They came to Afghanistan. How did they leave Afghanistan? Going back to that comparison. They came to Palestine and backed these people, and they saying because they like democracy. Are Israelis democratic? Is this what democracy looks like? So, in general, the US foreign policy has always been hegemony and looking for its interest. I think it's time that the Americans, the American policy makers, understand that they have to free themselves from Israel because Israel will soon not exist anymore because an apartheid state does not exist in South Africa anymore, and injustice cannot prevail in this world. And I think for the history, imagine, I mean, where is Hitler in history now? He's a demon.
Yeah.
What Netanyahu did up so far has surpassed what Hitler has done, and he has televised it. So even if you are in denial today, in the present, in the future, you will be remembered exactly the same, or even
Another
worse.
Hitler, another Hitler, another Nazi state. I also just want to put this up. Thank you, Johan, for the super chat. He says praying for Lebanon from India. So thank you to
Oh, thank you,
our Indian
Johan.
friend. Thank you to our Indian friend. So and I also want to remind people again, make sure you like the stream, you guys. It helps boost us in the algorithm because of all the shadow banning
Do
that
everything
takes
to
place on
support
YouTube.
independent journalism.
Yes,
I mean, this is
you
part
have
of the
to.
resistance, really.
Well, that's why they
Resisting
suppress us.
the APAC media, you know?
Resisting the corporate APAC media. I want to ask you, Ghadi, as we approach October 7, 2024, it's going to be a year of genocide in Gaza. I don't think we're going to see, I mean, I would love for it to end, but I don't see any signs that it's going to end in the next couple of weeks before we hit that horrific milestone. So I'm just curious as we approach that year anniversary and we see the escalation in Lebanon, we see escalations across the region and the potential for a bigger war that might be tied to the American election. The way that Israel, likes to kind of play things out when the Americans are distracted. But yeah, what are your thoughts as we approach this anniversary of October 7th, 1 year of genocide in Gaza?
I think 1 year of genocide and all sorts of weaponry and impunity and billions of dollars and tons of ammunitions and like chemical weapons, and the world will always forever remember the scene of the Israeli soldiers being dragged by their t-shirts outside their tanks. The lie has been debunked on October 7. The lie that Israel has the the genius has been debunked. And all this time, what Netanyahu is trying to do is to salvage that lie, because breaking that lie is the first actual step of beginning of breaking the whole Zionist entity. This is where we are. We have put a lot of blood in the decades, in the ancestral rounds of this war. Yes, hundreds of thousands. You know, the Lancets say that maybe the 186,000 would actually end up being the actual number of deaths in Gaza. And now the number has surpassed that. This is a big number, but in the sense of the 76-year-old struggle, this is probably like the beginning of the end and the last sacrifices in the road to the liberation. There is no way on earth that this entity can stay. They know it. Inside their brains, the Israelis know that they will not stay in this land like that. The Israelis know that how they started is not how they are internally. They're not confident. They're not there. They have no image anymore, and the whole world knows them for who they are. Right now, they're just bullying the world. How much can a bully win? Will they bully the US forever? Well, I don't think it's gonna happen. So I think This is a long struggle, and I think we will be having a live coverage, Rania, next month and after that. And there will be
Yes.
strikes on Lebanon and assassinations. And I promise you, the Lebanese people will remain like you always know them, and we're waiting for you to celebrate Christmas with our families in Lebanon, while the Hezbollah Lebanese fighters protect us on our behalf in the southern Lebanon from the baby killers.
I want to show this comment from Beatrice. Thank you for your super chat. She says, I just came back from Palestine, more impressed than ever by Arab culture and resilience. Sending all my love to you all in the Middle East and hopes for true freedom and justice for all of you soon. So thank you for that comment. Ghadi, I want to ask you, since you just mentioned more strikes to come, I guess the big question on everybody's mind after what we saw transpire over the last few days is there going to be an all-out regional war? I mean, some people might even argue there already is an all-out regional war. It's just not as apocalyptic as we might think. But you know, that really big war, the big war. Um, Israel is playing with fire, right? They seem to be constantly testing Lebanon, testing Hezbollah, testing other regional players. In your opinion, given all your experience in covering the region and everything you know, and you are very knowledgeable, do you see this snowballing into a bigger war?
When we say bigger war, you mean the ground invasion? Ground invasion is something impossible for the Israelis. It is impossible to attain. The only thing they can do is what they're doing now. Uh, an all-out war is already present. It's only that their capacity to do more is not here. If they carry on bigger strikes, we would carry on bigger strikes. So they don't do it. They are still testing the patience of Hezbollah. And I think the people they are assassinating and the operations that are doing in the long run, they're not really actually uh, like bringing their settlers back. They still
Mm.
lost their land. So this is all a part of the psychological up and down of the warfare. I think a slow and brutal war, just like the one we are in on the Lebanese front, will remain, will be prolonged.
This is like the new normal. This is the normal situation now, is just having airstrikes happening.
And you know something, as people who already have a lot of injustice and death around you, many of the Lebanese want it to be like that. They don't want to be sitting and watching TV and watching Netflix as their brothers in Palestine are being in a Holocaust. It is a choice of life here because it's the same enemy, you know? And we are the same
Yeah.
people. So a lot of people, I mean, people from Ireland, people from New York, people from South Africa, people from all across the world want to fight for the justice in Palestine. You could only be Lebanese if you're fighting for that too.
Hmm. And then I also want to ask you, because, like I mentioned, you are a war correspondent. You've been to Yemen. You've spent, you know, Iraq very well. You know Syria very well. Obviously, you know Lebanon very well. You've been to Gaza. You've been to the tunnels of Gaza. Um, so you've reported from all these places, and now what we see is we see the involvement of people from Iraq, and also after the last few days, they promised, or they offered to send fighters from Iraq to Lebanon to help Hezbollah, but Hezbollah doesn't need the help. You have Yemenis surprising us every so often. They're still blocking ships in the Red Sea. And then they've also actually hit Tel Aviv a few months ago. And have repeatedly tried to and made it past the Iron Dome missile defense system. Um, and then, of course, the people of Gaza are fighting under the most brutal circumstances from out of a death camp. Um, and so, again, as we approach that 1 year anniversary, I'm curious your thoughts on this, I guess, era we're in, where you have a resistance axis across the region, where there are, you know, rockets and missiles flying to hit Israel from several different places. This has never really happened before.
This is why I'm very sure that the clock is ticking and this apartheid will not persist. Um, because the axis of the resistance today, what calls itself the axis of the resistance, is being able to disrupt $1 million worth of trades in its sea. It's being able to manufacture, to self-manufacture $100 missile that would hurt $1 million tank, they're being able to persist on their land. Whereas the colonizers are leaving, they are facing more and more enemies. The front, our front, the indigenous people, we once were alone. Today we have everybody with us. I mean, even Russia spoke about this as a terror attack. They are dragging the whole world into our camp. University students all across America, protesters all across the UK, European parliamentary figures, African legal figures, West, East, North, South. Everybody is joining the camp. So, so I mean, you could only see. By the way, the Yemenis are like, I don't know, but it's like a very different, new, creative kind of exposing yourself. I mean, I still can't get over the idea that they had dressed up the ship team to expose that they are safe and and secure the hostages or something. So they had them front row in some religious celebration for Prophet Muhammad, wearing all the.
Right? That was
it's
hilarious. That
it's
was
like
pretty hilarious.
it's unreal, It's like, really, this is like actually a crew of $1 million trade ship that is actually there in Yemen celebrating Prophet Muhammad. And so it is unreal what these people who have been impoverished and besieged and hungered, there was a humanitarian crisis, there was a famine in Yemen, and they had the Saudis bomb them nonstop. And by the way, Lloyd Austin, who's now the Minister of Defense, he was the one in charge for the Americans and the Saudis for eradicating Yemen. Him personally, he was in the base there, and he took the calls in a sense, and then he said we should back that. So they know the Yemenis very well, and the Yemenis don't care at all. And then you go to Iraq. Iraq would send, well, Iraq and Hezbollah together salvaged Syria versus Obama. You know,
Wow. Yeah, they
Bash
did. You're right. You're right.
Bashar al-Assad, from an impoverished country, for example, under war and sanctions since forever. Bashar, son of Hafiz Assad, was able to win over Obama's bet, the president of the United States. And the best Democratic president, as per Democrats up to date, and I think he's the best you're gonna ever get, guys, if this is how you're doing, But so this Bashar al-Assad stayed in place. He is in place now, and the Iraqis and Hezbollah and the Iranians helped him defeat Obama on Syria. So I think people should go back. First of all, if you've learned nothing in your life, you have to start learning to follow where the news is coming from. I mean, open your social media, follow influencers from all kinds and diverse political views, and you do the comparison for yourself. Who's genocidal? Who's pro-life? Who's a terrorist? Who's not? Who's racist and who's not? Try to penetrate like that, that blurry vision that has been imposed on us by this mainstream media that is always aligned with these people, and you will get to the truth. I mean, follow Rania and Breakthrough News
And
and do
Ghadi.
donate for them, wherever you're donating. Click, make sure to click.
Yeah. Make sure now we've got Ghadi telling you to make sure you like the stream, you guys. Listen, actually, okay, there's a few more comments I want to put up. We have our friend Zohra again. She says, guys, I was sending money as support and love at the exact time that comment was made. As an American in my Afghan roots, I follow your all's work, and it's made me less heartbroken and less hopeless because voices like yours speak from a place of truth and justice. Love, Zohra. So thank you for that.
We love
comment.
you too.
We love you too. And then we have Cynthia Al-Khouri. Ghadi, I'm from Bint Jbeil, and I want to thank you for your message and politics. Inshallah, we'll host you and Rania for a live stream from our village when we win. So thank you very much, Cynthia. Yeah.
See?
Thank you.
See the
Thank
spirits? Just for the viewers, Bint Jbeil is like the first and front line with the occupied lands of Palestine, where the Israelis are bombing houses, killing people, destroying infrastructure, and always and forever failing to crush the Lebanese spirit.
I didn't know, it's impressive. I mean, the Israelis tried in 2006 to invade Bint Jbeil. And I think what's the story? It's like 5 Hezbollah fighters like were too much for the Israelis to handle. Um, I mean, it's look, it's as the Americans would say about the Israelis, it's quite innovative of Hezbollah, the way they're able to use limited resources to basically defeat an army that's funded to the
Well,
tune of billions of
too
dollars.
bad for the white supremacists. I mean, these are brown people who obviously are smarter than your white colonizers. I mean, too bad. You have to get over that.
So there's one more comment I'm going to show real quick. This is by Asuru
The
Marai. I'm so
UN.
sorry. I butchered your name. In the September 18 UN vote on having Israel leave the occupied territories, the countries voting no make up 5.6% of the world's population. The countries voting yes account for 70% of the people. I mean, yeah, it's a really good observation. That speaks to the undemocratic world that we live in. Ghadi, I want to ask you, because you born and raised in that 70% of the world that voted yes in Lebanon. And, so much of the world watches the American presidential elections because who wins does impact the entire world, even though they don't get to vote for who gets to be the world dictator. And I'm curious, as we enter this upcoming presidential election, I want to ask you to comment on our elections here. I mean, what are your thoughts? Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Does it impact you whatsoever who gets to be the next president of the United States?
I think what is very well observed and known now after the Biden administration is that it doesn't really take a president to rule in America because things were happening and I don't think he was present
Hmm.
mentally
Yeah.
or whatever, you know. It
Yeah.
wasn't really well for him. I mean, we could all see. So I think the president is not always everything, but it changes stuff. So nothing's gonna change. They're not gonna let us live as equal humans. They're not gonna stop backing the Israelis, whether it's Kamala or Donald Trump. So for me, I don't really have an opinion about that. I feel sorry for Americans for being stuck with only these two. I mean, the autocracies of the Middle East seem better to me at a certain point because at least we don't fake being democracies. At least we don't fake it. And we are
Yeah.
botched, we know we're botched. But
You're not in denial. You're not in denial like the rest of us here.
yeah, yeah. So I think I really do pray for the safety of all the American citizens because it looks to me like more and more terror and hatred and racism is emerging in the American society. And I think this is a very dividing kind of time in the world and polarizing time for the Americans in general because they are a big population. Um, I just hope some people are saying the Democrats, a Democrat win would prolong the ability of nuclear talks, and thus things would be in a way in the same momentum in the Middle East, and that Trump is crazy. Well, duh, and that he would do unpredictable things. But the Russians want Trump, and these people say and analyze all kinds of things. Um, I just think that it's an American matter at that point. And I really pray that some miracle happens to America and they have other choices than these two. I mean, how can you be silent about a presidential candidate repeating a lie like that? And I mean, the world saw what happened, who killed whom on October 7th. The world saw that there was no mass rape. It was a debunked story. Why are you saying that? And you're telling us, the humans of the world, that you are a candidate on the same day when there was CCTV footage of Israeli sick, barbaric colonizers and mercenaries raping prisoners of war. Actually, they took footage. There was footage. And when Israelis were trying to protest that because they're really thinking like this is existentially gonna make us end in Israel, when they tried to protest it, they were like spread away by politicians who are in charge. And this is what you are backing, Kamala. I mean, I fear for the American people with these leaderships. I hope you guys can actually Get a miracle from the sky. Called a
Thank you.
third, called a third choice, you know?
Do you hear that? Somebody in the Middle East is hoping kind things on Americans, even as American weapons bomb Middle Eastern countries.
Well,
I'm
I
going to
know
show
the American people are, we like the American people. We like the civilian people of America. We see them and we see their protests and we see their, I mean, we all have family. I mean, you are an American person. How can I not love the Americans? I mean, you're one of the closest friends I have, yeah?
yeah.
I have an American family in a way. So the politics and the policies of the United States administration in the Middle East would never reflect the hearts of true Americans. It would reflect the hegemony. It would reflect the Zionism. And this is why we say America's hijacked.
Well, so I want to show one last comment from because this is a fan of yours. Johan is throwing in the super chat again to say, Ghadi, I know you from the West Asia Post on Wyon. You are a brave journalist. Salute to you and the Lebanese people from a Syrian Christian in India. And on that note, Ghadi, I want to ask you to tell everybody where they can follow your work because you're
Oh, I
everywhere.
do a lot of things.
Yeah,
I
it's actually a
mean,
hard question. This is gonna take a while,
yeah.
guys. Sit back.
Okay. So I am sitting now. I'm sitting now in my office. I have a company. It's called Gaia Media Services, where I do training and campaigning and publishing and production. This is like the 10th year of that. So I do my independent work from that office, and from that office I correspond to WION, a global television that comes from Delhi, and I contribute to you all the platforms, the independent platforms that are spread away, like from North American ones to European ones to Asian ones to now I think Australian ones. We speak
Wow.
everywhere. This is in English, and most of my work is in Arabic. I have a published book on Syria, and I have around but they're not on YouTube now. They were in local TVs, around like 300 televised reports of local coverage, and around 52 documentaries of war from different places of Middle East. They were in a series of a show called The Frontline in Arabic in a local TV. And if you want to see my work, I think you have to follow me on social media or to follow Rania. Press the like button, y'all, because she's gonna be having me.
I love that. I love
No,
that.
you just, I'm just trying to imitate you now, you
It
know?
was
It's
good. It was a
hard.
good invitation. No, actually, you did a good
I
job.
think I think with my accent, it's gonna take me like 20 years of friendship with Rania to get a good accent,
Yeah.
but we're
Oh God, we
working.
don't
We're
want you to
getting there.
sound like me. I sound like too. No, no. I want to sound more like you, Ghadi. I want to thank you so much for joining me for the hour to discuss all of this,
Habibi.
and we'll definitely do it again soon. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Rania. Stay safe. You too.
Oh yeah.